It is May 18th, 2020. You're listening to the Rough Tumble Podcast.
You are now listening to the Rough Tumble Podcast.
We had the opportunity to talk to Cole Miller finally and interview him. We've been trying to, I want to say we've been trying to, but Cole called us out on that. We've been talking about bringing him on for months, and we finally actually pulled through and did what we said we were going to do. So that might be the first time that we've done that. Is it?
That's true. Yeah, I think it is. It was like you said, we've been trying to get him on for a while. On our end, we've been trying to get him on for a while. We just hadn't reached out to Cole yet, and the timing worked out perfect. The coronavirus gave us the opportunity because I knew Cole had nothing better to do other than call us on Skype and do this interview. So, but he's a 20-time UFC veteran. He was on season 5 of The Ultimate Fighter. He's a black belt under Marcos Depata, and he's a combatives instructor. He works with the guys out. What is it?
Damata? D-A-M.
What did I say?
Depata?
No, I said Damata. I said Marcos Damata.
No, you didn't.
It's probably because of the microphone. It's okay.
It's probably because it's recorded and on forever on the internet.
Forever, yeah. So Damata, and then he's the primary combatives instructor for the guys there at Cause Effect Tactical Solutions, which is a tactical solutions company that teaches pistol, rifle, self-defense, combatives, things like that. So, so we sat down talking about all that stuff, and then we also talked to him a little bit about him wanting to get back into the fight game. So
yeah, really interesting interview. I was excited about it, and really cool to actually get to talk to him. Also, make sure you check out our new web store or our merch store. We have lots of new products on there. T-shirts, sweaters, hoodies with our logo on it, with their faces on it. We're going to have more stuff coming up soon. We've got phone cases, coffee mugs. We're going to have spats. You know those, we're going to have beach towels soon. We're going to have a beach towel with our face on it. Yeah. And I was
with our face on it? We're going to do a beach towel with our face on it?
Yeah.
That's gonna be. I'm gonna buy one for myself.
I was thinking we should do. You remember we took those individual pictures, and you had one with you doing finger guns. I was gonna do that one on a towel.
Oh yes, that sounds wonderful.
You know those like those tapestries that like basic girls put up on behind their headboard.
Yeah, that
are like tie dyed and stuff. We can get those made. A tapestry with our face on it. But yeah, you can go check that out at Teespring, teespring.com/the Rough and Tumble store. Go on there and give us your money and represent us all that you can. This episode's brought to you by you, our Patreon subscribers, and the people that have been following us from the beginning, the OGs. We still have
38 months or 38 weeks ago is when we started this endeavor.
Yeah, I don't know if is it 38 weeks? It might be a little bit more because we did a couple. No, I guess not. Yeah, it's about 38 weeks. Yeah. That's crazy. That's nuts.
I know it's not quite a year. There's 52 weeks in a year, so it's not quite a year, but we're almost there.
But for you guys that have been supporting us and sharing all of our stuff, listening to all the episodes, this one is brought to you by you guys. We really appreciate all the support that everybody's shown us. We try to stay active on Patreon, posting new content, things like new episodes or episodes that you can only get on there. We just released our interview with Bryce Mitchell on video out on YouTube, and that previously was only available on Patreon. So those Patreon viewers have been able to watch that interview for months now. So just little interesting little tidbits that we like to add on there and keep it fun. With that being said, though, let's go ahead and get into the interview with Cole Miller.
We've been trying to get Cole in for a while, actually. So for those of you guys who don't know, Cole is a 20-time UFC veteran. He's a black belt under American Top Team, and runs his own academy out there in the Macon. Is it in the Macon, Georgia area?
Yeah, it's in that area. I'm in Bon Air, which is
You're
like
south of Warren and Robins, though, right?
Yeah, like I'm like in Warner Robins.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've been trying to get you on the show for a while, and glad we could actually finally line it up and make it happen. So we really appreciate you doing this with us.
Hell yeah, I'm glad to be here.
I feel like it's been like a mythical creature we've been trying to catch. We got to get Cole Miller on the show. And then we're finally.
I don't think y'all been trying that hard.
Yeah.
my schedule is not that busy.
Honestly, it's just been us talking about it and then never doing anything about it. But finally,
like he was like, "Oh, we'd love to have you on," and then I see that you guys have like all these like really awesome guests, and I'm like, I see why they're waiting so long to put me on.
Because you're the killer. Those guys were filler. You're the killer.
Yeah. I'm the grand finale, right?
That's right. Well, so we all, Cole and I we met through actually the Air Force Combatives program. But you've known my coach, Rolly, for a pretty good while. You guys I don't know, how did you and Rolly come in contact? Was it just through the UFC or what?
No. I mean, I watched Rolly fight in a pink singlet. I mean, like,
yeah.
I mean, I watched that live, you know what I'm saying? So like, I think we might've met, like shook hands. I know I did with Matt, you know, but, I guess I had seen him like at the UFC. Yeah. So like I first met him or saw him like back in like 03 or 04 or something like that. And then, kind of came into more of a personal contact, like, you know, while he was with the UFC. You know, we were in the same weight class at that time. And, you know, just seeing him around, it's cool to see another dude who is built just like me, doing his thing. And, you know, after that, Dean Thomas, got with me and said, "Hey man, I'm going to go teach this, seminar, out here with these guys. And, I'd like if you came along too." You know, Rolly said he would, you know, he'd take care of us, and, you know, it'll be worth it just for the knowledge that we can all kind of bounce off of each other. And I did it. I was like, hell yeah, cool. So I went out there and I worked with some of his guys. It was mostly MMA fighters. And it was like a real small group. It wasn't like, you know, sometimes like you got like a seminar and you announce it and, you know, you charge like a pretty good fee. Then you got 40, 50 people. That it wasn't like that. It was like just his raw fighters. Like there wasn't anybody that wasn't a fighter there. There was not a submission grappler. There was not a gi guy. It was just like 8 fighters or 6 fighters or something like that. And, I mean, we showed some really cool stuff, and I know I learned a lot just from like being there, listening to Dean, and then Rolly showed us some stuff after. I think we did some like little live goes, but they weren't even like 5-minute rounds. They were like little 30-second goes, and we only did a couple. I think it was like more positional sparring stuff, typically up against the cage, but that was like a real cool experience, just like hanging out with Rolly. I mean, like I always knew that he was really, really good and had a lot of knowledge just by like seeing him fight and then seeing like fighters that he was putting out and people that he was training. So I always knew that he was like a mastermind and had a good IQ, but it was cool for him to bring us in and kind of use us as a resource for his guys and seeing how he was trying to expand the knowledge for his guys in his area. And then we stay in touch, you know, ever since.
Yeah, I remember when you came in. I wasn't training at Westside at the time. I was running my own academy prior to that. But I do remember when you came in because it was somewhat publicized. I think I remember seeing something on Facebook or whatever. And that's one of the reasons I knew that you'd stopped in. And I remember when Rolly was working with Dean a lot back during that time too, really kind of getting some mentorship from him. And then when I came to Colorado, I never expected there to be a civilian in that class. And so I see this long bearded dude, and I didn't know that you had a beard. The last time I saw you, you didn't have a beard, or the last time I'd seen you on Facebook or whatever. And so there's this tall, lanky, unassuming guy that everybody else seems to know but me, because like David Durnell, the director, like all the coaches, Bart and all those guys, like they all knew who you were. But I had no, at the time I didn't know, I hadn't recognized you yet. And I'm like, is this guy like, I thought you were like some DevGru, like tier 1 asset guy. You know what I mean? Like
Operator.
Just walking around, just some operator walking around in civvies with a fucking beard and stuff. And like a couple of the other guys in the class were saying that too. They're like, hey, who's the guy with the beard? Is he like a fucking, is he like with the unit? And I'm like, I don't know, dude. He's got a beard and I don't know. And then you and I were doing some drills together. And then it just kind of hit me. Like I immediately, for whatever reason, it just popped in my head. I was like, wait, I think this is Cole Miller. And then I asked you, and it turned out you were, and we ended up having a great time at the course. The course itself was amazing. So before we even get into that piece, just kind of give the people who might be listening who aren't familiar with you, kind of your beginnings, because everybody has a genesis and everybody has a start in either martial arts or MMA or whatever. And for you kind of went, Stephanie said, and that's when Mitch fell in love with Cole. She typed it on the thing. So you went to the highest level, right? So you went to the UFC. So what was your genesis from the beginning of when you decided I'm going to start doing martial arts and then taking it to the big show, so to speak?
I started out like many people in the era where, I came up fighting in like the early 2000s. We were fans first, and that's when we saw it, and it was something we just had to have. And I was really interested. I had been watching MMA since '93. I saw the first one live. We had the cable box, and we put the number in the cable box. You typed the number in, and that was how you ordered it back then. So I saw UFC 1 live on pay-per-view, and we watched all the ones that we could, after that, went to Blockbuster, got the VHS tapes and watched those. And, kind of in middle school, didn't see it as often, but then kind of when I got back into high school, we started getting pay-per-views more often and started tuning into Pride in like 2000 or 2001. And we got every single pay-per-view. And back then, nowadays you'd think that we were loaded, but back then they would do a pay-per-view like every other month. There was like 6 events a year.
Yeah.
And and they had a couple Pride fillers in there, so we get all the Pride, and we were really Pride fans. And I was in high school. I still had never had any martial arts training. Always wanted to, but never did. But at this point, I already knew that I wanted to do jiu-jitsu. Actually, I wanted to do jiu-jitsu in the beginning. And then I wanted to be a shoot fighter, like I wanted to be like the world's most dangerous man, Ken Shamrock. And I was like, man, I want to be a shoot fighter. And I thought was like, man, these NHB guys, that's what they do. They're shoot fighters. And so I guess after high school, I was like going to Mercer University that first semester. Like it's a Division I school. And I was like, like doing the fall practice for the baseball team, and I just
did you play college? You actually played college baseball as well?
No, I didn't play. That's what I was just getting at. Like, so I was doing fall practice, and like I just realized, man, I think it was like a lot of things messed up. I think that my student advisor messed up. I think that I was burned out. I think it was a lot of things. But we were supposed to be on the field twice a day. And we were supposed to be at the 5 a.m. Weightlifting workout. And somehow I ended up with a 15-hour class load instead of a 12. So 12 was a lot. And like I was like on the field like I wasn't making it on the field twice a day. I was like going to class all day long, and I was doing the 5 a.m. lifting, and I was getting on the field once a day. But it was a shock. I don't think that high school prepared you for a program like that. And so I just went into the coach's office. I guess it was about a month in, 5 weeks in. And I just said, Coach, because he kind of got into my ass a little bit, because he had gotten, something from the teachers that I had missed, so many classes, because I had like an 8 a.m. class, but we had the 5 a.m. lifting. You go lift for an hour, be done and back in the dorm in an hour and a half. And then I'd fall asleep and then miss my 8 a.m. class and then my 10 a.m. class. You know what I mean? So he got this thing saying I had missed like already close to the maximum number of classes you could miss in a semester. So he got my ass and said, you need to take a long, good look in the mirror. You're about to blow it. So I just went back into his office and said, I appreciate the opportunity, but this isn't for me. Not like this, And then I ended up getting a letter in my student mailbox that said I received automatic Fs for missing 4 classes in a semester for the following classes. And it was every class that I had.
Oh, shit.
So I thought that like, you go to a bigger school, like they don't check attendance, but I was wrong, man. Like, and then I would try to go to the dean's office and get it reversed. And dude, I couldn't even see the dean, man. Like the lady was like, no, you're done. But like the money, the scholarship and grant money for all the different academic stuff I had was that money was spent. So I didn't tell my parents, and I just used the dorm as like an apartment for the rest of the semester.
You just
like I
kept going to school every day.
This was like 6 weeks in, so,
your parents kept asking you how school was going on like Christmas break, and you're like, it's great.
Yeah. And I'm just lying to them, so then like Christmas break comes in after that first semester. And then, I tell them what happened, and they obviously were not happy. And honestly, I didn't want to go to college anyways. Like I only went because it was what you did to make your parents leave you alone. Like that was like the way I looked at it. I was like, I'm going to go do this. And if I endure this, one day my mom and dad, they'll leave me alone. Like they will quit being up my ass. And so I failed. And then after I failed out, I was going to like a smaller like local like university, I guess you could say. And that's when I walked in the door. Like this guy came into this sandwich shop, this bagel bakery I was working at. And he had like a black eye, like a purple eye. And then he had like that yellow green eye where there was like a black eye that had like gone away. And I asked him like, and I knew this guy because he graduated the high school I did like 2 years ahead of me. And I asked him like what happened to him. He's like, oh, I trained mixed martial arts. And this term was not really used back then. This was like in 03. Yeah, like May of 03. And I was like, oh man, that's awesome. He was like, you know what that is? I was like, yeah, man, I love Shudo. I like pancrase, because I was using that Team 1 landline at the university on my LimeWire, and I was like downloading all these like dope videos and dope Japanese MMA fighters. And like I was like for a guy back then, I wasn't like, I had my ear close to the ground. Let's just say that I was in the know with what was going on in the whole world of MMA, even in like the small mundane shows. And I went, and this guy was like, oh, you should come train. So I came and trained, and I trained for like, I don't know, a week. And I thought it was dope, and I was trying moves that I had seen, on, like the watching fights and stuff, and just getting smoked, by the guys. And this was basically a fight club. This was not like an academy that you see now with a structured class where you get groomed. No, these guys, you showed up and you were grappling, and then you were grappling with punches, or you were sparring with those Century foam shin guards and MMA gloves, like sparring. So they kind of only let me grapple. And then I got jacked up, and then like the next time it was like, okay, grappling with some like soft strikes. And then after that, it was doing some other stuff. But I was like, all right, I'm going to come back. I promise. I'll be back. And you know what happens? Like anybody that says that, they never come back ever. Yeah, of course. And the guy was probably like, yeah, right. And so after I finished that semester and I made straight A's and got on the dean's list at that other university, I finally got my parents off my back a little bit, and then I started training. And I think like 5 months later, I fought.
So what was the scene like in that area of Georgia what academy were you training at whenever you first started?
It was called Academy of the Fighting Arts, and it later turned to Team Praxis. But the area, there was no area. Like that was the only, we met twice a week in Macon. And then they rented space out of like a fitness gym, and then a Gold's gym, and then a Taekwondo academy. He didn't have like his own school. He was a good pro fighter at the time. And then he had like a shed in Griffin, Georgia, which is like south of Atlanta, but north of Macon. and we were up there on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday because I was like kind of close to where he lived, and it was raw training. Now Atlanta had a legit scene. Atlanta had like schools everywhere, jiu-jitsu black belts everywhere. I was training with this guy Cam McCarg, who is a self-taught kind of submission grappler with a gymnastics background and some like Wing Chun and Taekwondo, but he was good. He was tapping out black belts and shit. His game was not very complete. He didn't have the best positional grappling, like good passing or sweeping, but he could tap out anybody. He could be like getting crushed and then tap you out with anybody with any type of submission. He was a real submission guru, and his striking was all crazy with the kicks that he had and real unconventional techniques, but he fucked people up with them. And I trained with that guy for like 03 to the end of 05.
How much did how much did you get to train with your brother, and how did that kind of evolve?
Like every day.
Every day.
Like he was it. Like he was the big reason that I think that me and him got so good so fast and fought so soon was because we were just training and getting it on all the damn time.
I've always been so jealous of that. I'm an only child. I don't have anybody to get to do that with. But yeah, so that's
my brother got into it for a little bit early on when I was a blue belt, and he never, unfortunately, like Johnny said, like it's kind of like a dream come true. Like you always want to have like a sibling to get into that with, and my brother's so fucking lazy that when he would get tired, he just didn't want to do it anymore. He just wanted to fight. He didn't actually want to do any of the work. So, and now he's like a 2-time convicted felon, so it worked out.
Yeah, right on.
Awesome story, Mitch. Thanks. So like around that 03 era, like the 03 to 05 era, and can you talk about like the differences between that era and now? Because you've been through that whole progression, and to me that was like, we were kind of in the Stone Ages, kind of around that time, and between that and now is just huge.
Yeah, like if you were around like in the pre-Ultimate Fighter 1, like it was different then. In 03, they were still using the word or the term NHB. It was still like MMA and NHB were kind of both being used, but it was like really where the MMA era kind of began was that early 2000s. It kind of got away from NHB and into MMA, and NHB at the time was like that. It means no holds barred, and you can kind of get in the history of that. You can kind of get where it comes from, and it's kind of early wrestling. You can say catch, but like I just call it wrestling, like era, back in the day. And it just basically meant that like all submissions were legal. Now it didn't mean that all moves or all holds were legal, because you still couldn't like headbutt or put thumbs and eyes and crazy stuff like that. But you could pretty much do everything. And then there was like pancration style fights, because it was like it was an iffy time in most of the states if it was even legal or not legal. Or did the boxing commission hold reign over what was being done, and if not, how could we do this without having them get word of it and come shut you down? So like a lot of them had like open hand palm strikes and stuff like that on the feet, kind of just like in pancrase. And a lot of that was happening. And then when I started training, like those shows were still going on, and then they started doing like the closed fist type of stuff. And in Georgia, amateur and pro was the same. There was just I think they did no elbows, and you had a 4-minute round instead of a 5-minute round, but you didn't have shin guards on or 7-ounce gloves or anything like that. It was just like knees to the face, kicks to the fucking head, and get it on for free.
Yeah. Was there did you have an amateur career, or did you just only fight professional?
10 fights.
10 fights as an amateur. And like back then, was that something that a lot of people were looking at? Like, were you looking at your amateur career as like, this is what I want to do professionally and I want to go somewhere with this?
Yeah. After my first fight, I fought twice in that day. And like after that, I just knew like I'm going to do this for as long as I can. And there was no money in it. So like, it wasn't like I'm going to do this for a job. Nobody wanted to do it for a job, because you couldn't. Like I said, at the UFC, you had 6 events a year, and you didn't fight on all 6. If you you know, like if you were in the UFC, you didn't fight on 6 events, you fought on like 2. So like nobody was making money, you know, but I was like, I gotta get this as often as I can. So most guys in Georgia at the time, I think were coming up, as like amateurs. Like I think the guys that kind of were in the gen before me, like the guys that I was learning from, I think that they kind of understood that they needed to take care of their guys. So everybody kind of had like a little bit of an amateur background, but like I said, the amateur fighting was just the same as pro. You were just not getting paid, but like you knew that wouldn't affect like your real or your pro record.
Right. So you're still treating it to gain experience and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was fighting to me. You know, like I said, like the same rules.
Yeah.
Just not getting paid is kind of fucked up now that I think about it.
Right.
Like you're not getting paid to put your body on the line. And
do they do shin guards and stuff now for where you're at?
Yeah, in Georgia they have a 3-minute round instead of a 5-minute round. They have like shin guards and the 7-ounce like turtle shell gloves.
Yeah.
And then there's like no ground and pounds to the head if you're an early amateur. Then they have what's called advanced amateur.
Whoa.
Which allows punches to the head and you take the shin guards off, but there's still no elbows.
That's great. The only things that change in Arkansas are no elbows and no knees to the head, and that's it. I think it's a little bit thicker gloves, but still no shin guards, nothing like that. I've always wondered that because I see it in California a little bit. I didn't know if other states had adopted that idea for amateur MMA. I think it's smart though.
Yeah, me too.
What about, one of the other big changes that I think is interesting that you got to see in your career is like the change from the sponsorships to kind of the Reebok deal in the UFC. How much did that like really affect you, and kind of what's your opinion on that whole, how that's played out, I guess?
Yeah, you know, at that time, you know, so I had left that first team and I was at American Top Team and I was already in the UFC when all that was going down. And everybody was pretty outraged. But at the same time that was happening, the market was like getting like overly saturated with the sponsors too. So I think like I was never making like these 6-figure checks and sponsorships that I was hearing about some of these guys making like 6 figures. Like you're making that like to wear some shorts or some shit. But like on a good day, you know, I was like right around 30,000 for me. And then when I went to the Reebok deal, I was in the higher tier. So I was making 15, which was the second highest that you could make on the Reebok deal. But I think that I had moved down to the prelims. And if you were on the prelims, you weren't getting any sponsor money anyways. You're like lucky to get 10. So it really didn't affect me that much at that exact time. But I think like there were some fights that I had after that where I could have made more money with sponsors. It just didn't affect me in that like right exactly at the crossover. It didn't affect me as much, I think, immediately. But I think in the long run it does. And I think that the fighters are better off having management that can do all that shit for them, that can, you know, get them their sponsors and stuff like that. But UFC does what UFC wants, and I think that's their thing. I think that they want the uniformity. I think that they think it makes them look more professional. But then all the fighters look the exact fucking same. They all look the same. I don't feel like that there's much individuality. I feel like you're like an assembly line. You're just like, let's put one guy in, and the moment his fight's over, let's get him the fuck out, and then let's get the next guy in. Keep it going, guys. Keep the machine going. I
can definitely agree with that. Like it started to turn into just very, very routine now. And this break in like the most recent UFC fights, I think has been such a shock for everybody that it's kind of it's been a necessary change up to the whole model, just so people can kind of see a different aspect to it.
Yeah, no doubt.
I wonder, with Bryce basically being Bryce Mitchell being awarded, quote unquote, his ability to wear his camouflage shorts, I wonder if that's going to start causing a ripple effect or a rift within that. Because you know, the Hawaiian guys were always huge on like your Kendall Groves and those guys were really big on wearing the Hawaiian flag shorts and stuff like that. And I wonder if now that they've basically okayed Bryce to get his camouflage shorts, if we're going to see other fighters start stepping up to the plate and kind of causing a rift in that whole Reebok deal.
Mitch is cutting in and out there. Did you get all that?
I got that. But yeah, I think so. I mean, like, one thing about fighters is they eat their own. Like, it's one of the worst things. That's why we're never going to see like fighters making as a whole, like a union or some sort of an association where these guys can make like some decent money or they look out for the rights of one another. Because they chew each other up. So I think that there's going to be some blowback. You know, fighters are going to complain, like, why does he get this? Why can't I get that? But I think in the end, like, it don't matter if you're from Hawaii and you want to do this shit. It's like Bryce Mitchell. They're going to say that he earned it by his performance. And if you do the same, then you can get the same kind of treatment for your individuality.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, it's I think that he's kind of had to petition for that spot to be an individual and stand out a little bit. Like, he's been begging for the shorts for the past couple of fights and petitioning for it. And so it's kind of interesting to see it go from my opinion, such an individualized sport where you could wear whatever you wanted and kind of do whatever you wanted to now it's very uniform and they're trying to shut down those ideas. Yeah.
Completely agree. But I think that Bryce deserves what he's going to get. It's like a pair of shorts. Like, what's the big deal? And it's not like he's wearing his own brand, you know. It's they're just going to make some camo shorts for him. It's like, if I was fighting, I'd just be like, hey, give me the Bryce Mitchell shorts.
Yeah. Yeah. You'd be surprised at how like important it seems to everybody else around here that he gets those shorts though.
Yeah. I could see that.
So what about like, let's talk about a little bit with your MMA career. Like, what was some of your standout fights, or like what were some of your favorite fights that you had coming up?
I think when I fought George Gurgel at 86, when I fought Ross Pearson on some fight night, and then when I fought Bart Palashevsky, who's probably like the hardest dude I ever fought, and then when I fought Sam Cecilia was probably like my best performance. I think that was like kind of my pinnacle. And then kind of just got riddled with injuries or poor circumstance or whatever you want to call it. You know, after that, kind of had like a downward trend after that. But that's part of the game. And I think that's just one of those things that's going to happen. Like, what goes up, you got to come down. And you gotta do what you can to like stay in there and, you know, endure that kind of stuff so you can come back on top again.
One of the unique things about the George Gurgel fight, for those who don't know, George was a pretty seasoned black belt at the time, and you were only a purple belt whenever you submitted him, right?
Right, that's correct.
Yeah. So that's a pretty significant. Now, with that being said, do you attribute that? Obviously, your hard work is a piece of that, but is that kind of an example of how things change when you start throwing punches and elbows?
What was that?
I'm sorry. With you being a purple belt, him being a black belt, and it being an MMA fight, and you did submit him. Do you attribute that just to being the difference between like a straight grappling match and then how things change when you start throwing punches and elbows?
I mean, I was on top very little in that fight, and I submitted him with a no-gi spider guard technique. So I think that it was like all the gi that I was doing. I was, you know, like, I know that right now I'm nothing in the world of jiu-jitsu compared to some of these like elite level guys. But at the time, I was one of the baddest purple and brown belts in the United States. Like, not for MMA fighters, for jiu-jitsu fighters.
For sure.
I mean, I was submitting black belts on the reg in training, and good black belts too. Guys that were both MMA fighters, but also guys that were had decorated jiu-jitsu histories. You know, like placing in, you know, mundials and stuff like that. And I had good training with these guys. And so when I was a purple belt, that's when everybody knew that I was going to submit him. All the Brazilians, all the black belts at Top Team, they knew it. They were just like, man, you're gonna do it. And my confidence was really high going in there. And everybody would just tell me all the time, oh, you need a brown belt. You need a brown belt. You need a brown belt. And after that submission win, I did get it.
What do you think your most accomplished win you feel that you've had? Just what made you feel the most satisfied, or which win made you feel the most satisfied about?
I would say it was the Gurgel fight, because I think that I just overcame a lot of stuff pre-fight and in-fight. But if I had to say what was my best fight, my flat out best performance, it was against Sam Cecilia.
That was your masterpiece
in Atlanta. That's my masterpiece.
Right on. I haven't. I don't know if I've actually watched that fight. How did it play out? Was it mostly on the ground, stand up?
It was mostly stand up. It was like being in the Matrix. I could just see everything and feel. In the Matrix 1 when Neo, after he dies and he comes back. Hold on one second. Hey, if I hear you whine one more time, I'm gonna jack you up. I don't care. That's Parent of the Year. Y'all hear that?
I thought you were talking to my kid because she started crying right around the same time.
No, but after Neo dies in the Matrix and he comes back, remember, it shows what he sees through his eyes, and he can see all the coding, all the green coding,
right,
going down the screen with the agents looking at him. And that's kind of what it felt like in that fight. I could see things before they happened. I was feeling, I wasn't thinking. The distance I could see and feel, I could be just out of range and then just back in range. And I mean, I lit him up.
Was that something that you had done something specific to reach that point, or was it just kind of a perfect storm and you were just on?
I think it was just a perfect storm. I think it was like that was one of 2 times I went into a fight 100%, no injuries and, not all fucked up. I fought 20 times in the UFC, and I had 25 other fights outside of UFC, and twice I was 100%.
Yeah.
So it was nice to be like that and just not have anything wrong with me, and had a really good training camp. It was just the perfect storm. It wasn't like I was that much better than the fight before or 3 years before. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it's the opponent.
It all came in. It all just it all happened at the right time.
Right. A lot of times it's that matchup too, that just he matched up perfectly with your style and kind of gave you what you wanted or what you.
Yeah, I think that he was a power puncher, a vicious power puncher, and had a wrestling background, and he had some good wins. Yeah, he had a good guillotine, but he was what I've been sparring my whole career. It's tough to fight me. I mean, you better just hope that you win a decision. That's the only thing you can do. You're going to fight this guy who's 6 feet tall at 145 or 155. He's going to be front kicking you or jabbing you in the mouth, and you just got to try to get the takedown and stall. That's pretty much how everybody beat me my whole career. You're going to hold on for 15 minutes, but to have somebody bring the fight to me who was trying to end me, that's kind of what I thrive in, where it's you're actually going to try to beat me, and if you try to finish me, that's how I'm going to finish you. So I was able to score some good shots, dropped him on the feet once or twice, something like that, and then finish with a rear naked choke, which is kind of nowadays that's my bread and butter. Right.
Yeah, I know. I definitely understand the feeling of being the tall, lanky guy. I'm 6'4" and fought at 155 for my amateur career, and then finally moved up to 170. So it's everybody wants to dive for your legs and take you down and hug you in every fight, it seems.
Yeah.
Mitch, did you have something?
No, not about the fighting thing.
Oh, okay. We can just keep going on about the fight stuff then. So was your fight with, I've been dying to ask this, but I can't figure out how to bring it up. Was your fight with Andy Wang, was that the one where he ended up crying afterwards?
No, that was on the Ultimate Fighter. Like and that was with, who did he fight? Brandon Melendez, I think. That was against Brandon Melendez.
Okay, because I saw him on your record, and I was like, man, I want to know what that felt like to watch that poor guy ball afterwards. That'd be highly disappointing.
That for me, that was on the finale, so that was like an official.
Okay, yeah, that was outside of the.
Whatever.
That makes sense. Did you get to watch the fights last night?
I did. Some good fights. There's some good fighters out there right now.
Oh, there really are. They're really coming up. How did you feel about the main event with dude losing and all of that going on in his life?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think everybody obviously wanted Walt to win.
Mm-hmm.
I know Walt. Walt spent some time at American Top Team, and he's just a gracious individual. Period. Even before the tragedy happened, so he's always been the way that he is. And everybody wanted him to win, and I guess it's kind of hard for me because I think a lot of people's attachment to him or his fight was because of the tragedy.
Right.
And like they kind of feel kind of heartbroken about it. But like I wanted Walt to win with like all of my, spirit, but like I feel nothing that he lost. Like I don't feel bad for his family. It's a good thing that he just got out there and fought. That means that he's moving on, not moving past, but moving on from what happened. And that's going to be something for his family and a great example for other people who are enduring some type of tragedy in their personal lives. So I don't feel sorry for him. Like he got in there and he fought. Somebody's going to win. Somebody's going to lose. You only deserve what you earn. You're only going to, sometimes you're going to zig when you should have zagged, and that zag is going to cost you a loss. And I don't think that you're any worse for having zagged than zigged, but he's going to go back to the drawing board. And like he said, he's going to come back better and stronger emotionally, physically. He's probably going to come back a smarter MMA fighter. Like he's going to do whatever it takes for him to succeed, or he won't. Regardless, he chose to push forward in a time where a lot of people would have drowned their sorrows in alcohol or prescription pain pills and never would have bounced back. He pushed forward. Good for him. He lost a fight. All right. Suck it up. Have 2 weeks of depression. Get the fuck up and do it again.
Yeah, I think that's a really good outlook of it, is just being real with the situation and approaching it from a realistic standpoint, not pretending that it didn't happen, but kind of moving on with life.
Yeah, you think fighting has anything to do with the losses that he had to deal with? No.
Right.
You think that because he lost, his daughter, that's why he lost the fight? You think that he was thinking about that when he was in there and that big ass dude was dropping hammer fists on him? You think that was what he was thinking about? I know he wasn't.
Yeah.
He's thinking about that big ass dude dropping hammer fists on him.
And honestly, for a lot of people, that might be his, that might be the one time that he hasn't thought about it, and that might be his kind of vacation from those thoughts.
You know how many dudes lose to Overeem?
Most of them.
Yeah, most of them.
It depends on which Overeem we're talking about, though.
Yeah, because dude, when he was eating horse meat, like I was showing my fiance a picture because I hadn't seen Overeem fight in a while, and so I watched the main event last night, and I'm like, God damn! And my fiance was like, "What?" And I was like, "Let me show you this dude when he was eating horse meat," and because that was what he was telling everybody was like,
the Ream.
Yeah,
he used to be the Ream.
When he was the Ream, yeah.
Yeah. And the weirdest thing I thought about watching last night, I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal when you're watching it from home, but the lack of an audience really made things strange.
Dude, I love it.
It was like watching the Ultimate Fighter show again. It was like watching Tough because it was, all those fights took place in that auditorium or whatever with no audience whatsoever. That's what it felt like.
Man, these judges don't know what the fuck they're watching anyways.
Oh, that was rough.
To have zero fans being able to influence these guys that already don't know what they're looking at, that's awesome. Because the fans, like the highs and the lows, cause their own personal biases to focus more on strikes landed by A fighter than B fighter. To be able to watch these fights quiet and not have any type of like rise or fall of who's favorite fighter to affect any decisions, like that's amazing.
That's a really, really good point. I pictured it, I explained it, I think maybe on the last episode or something. But it feels like a lot like what it's like to be inside the cage, because you can hear those hits and you can like hear I always recognize the bouncing of the plywood underneath, and the feeling and the sound of that was always really,
and the feet sliding on the canvas. That's really cool.
Yeah. It's strange to hear it, but it sounds like what it's like to be inside there, which is even cooler to me.
When you're talking about the judging system, there's a couple of, obviously there's no right or wrong answer, right? We know that. We know that typically there's no right or wrong answer, and nobody has the perfect answer, but there's usually a less right answer when it comes to the judging and stuff. What do you think would be a better, Joe Rogan's talked about having like a 5-judge panel, that kind of thing. What do you think? Is it an education thing? I mean, the UFC's been around for God knows how fucking long, and they still seem to get it wrong. So what do you think would be something that what would be your perfect fix to the judging system that we have right now in MMA?
One round, no time limit, no weight classes, no rules.
Yes.
Just the old school. just UFC 1 Redux.
There's the promo right there. Just Cole Miller saying that. Have you considered like branching out to into any other elements of MMA, or like, I know you have your gym and you're doing the combative stuff. Has there been any other ventures that you're kind of reaching out into?
I was having a good job doing some commentating for Island Fights for a little bit. And then I was just gonna go back to fighting. I was gonna fight for them. I think it was last October. Then some things happened and the ball got kind of dropped. But I've thought about promoting my own show, but man, running your own academy is already hard enough, especially during Coronation.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. I'd probably just try to get back like the ball rolling on the normalcy before I start making any kind of moves toward opening an additional school, or I mean, we're going to be expanding here pretty soon. Like we're going to be moving into a new facility, but past that, like doing my own promotion, or I don't know, doing any extra work inside of martial arts, that's probably not going to happen unless it's me kind of coming back to fighting. Like
right.
I would do that probably sooner before doing anything else.
Where are the Island Fights done at? I mean, obviously an island.
They do them all over, but they're based out of Pensacola.
Okay.
So they do them in like Fort Walton Beach or Destin or Panama City or Pensacola. They did one in Columbus. But yeah, all in that area.
Gotcha. I was thinking it was like Bahamas or something. I was like, that's the gig to have right there. Go commentate in the Bahamas every other week.
Yeah.
Sign me up for that. What got you into the combative stuff, and like what's your goal with all of that? Because like Mitch was saying, you're a civilian going through the Air Force combatives program. What kind of set you on that path, and what's your goal with it anyways?
I started training like with weapon integrated fighting, I guess, like pretty much around the same time I started training in like 03. Mm-hmm. And I did that. And then when I got the top team in like end of 05, beginning of 06, I kind of stopped. And I was focusing just on, MMA, because right around that time I got on the Ultimate Fighter and stuff. And in 2010 or 11, a guy, he was a purple belt at the time, an older guy working for a 3-letter agency, was asked if I wanted to come and train with some of the old timers and do some weapons-based grappling. And I was like, yeah, I used to do that stuff. I'll come do it. And he kind of got me back into it, and became kind of like a mentor to me, and to continue something that I was always thought was interesting and kind of passionate about. And kind of because he got me back into it, then I started thinking about all the older stuff I had learned. And then I was taking the newer stuff that was in MMA that was applicable in a combatives environment, and being able to apply it and kind of being able to think with a different set of eyes. Because I think when you're in law enforcement or you're military, you're only thinking within a specific set. Like you can only look at the picture a certain way. And when you come from a different environment, whether it was MMA or some other type of environment, it's a different set of eyes, and you can bring what you know about the type of training that you've done and how to put it in this equation to make it more efficient. I don't want to say better, but in some ways better and more efficient. And that's what I kind of started doing. And being able to train with that individual really, like I said, helped drive that passion again. And so I haven't stopped since 2010. Like I said, I had a little break from 05 to 10, and then I just kept doing it. And that's when I had a buddy of mine who was already a master instructor for the Air Force Combatives program, and I'd already had a contract, a unit-driven contract with the 5th Mob out here, and working with those guys. And I had another friend who was involved with the Combatives program in Colorado Springs, and kind of all three people all three groups were talking to Dave Vernell, who's the head of the Combatives program, about me at the same time. And that's when, he reached out and we were able to communicate, and he sent me the invite to come in. But basically what my goal is with it is just to be able to be sure to shut the door, buddy. To be able to help as many of our military personnel as I possibly can, and make the greatest effect that I can. I mean, that's it.
So you're not trying to build a curriculum or anything like that? You're just trying to
I've had a curriculum.
Okay, right on.
For years. Yeah.
Is that something that you're like putting out for as like a business to sell to these people, or is that just something that you're teaching?
I do have it. For those that want it, they have approached, and I've already got it put together. I've got custom 3-day courses. I have a 1-year course. That's like what I'm working with the 5th Mob on now. It was done before they came to me. I went in and did a full presentation on what they would be learning in the entire year and how it was spaced out, and how it I guess most efficiently allowed the students to pick up and yet retain all of the information. I think that's super important. You go do like a 1 week, 40-hour course. I think that like drinking from the fire hydrant like that doesn't allow it to sink in, but being able to be a local asset to the guys, and I kind of developed like a pretty good program for them to be able to learn and retain, and how one thing bridges into the next thing. So I do offer that, but it's not something that I advertise or market or try to push myself out there too much. I've got a lot of work on my plate, with my students at my academy, which is 80% military or former military. And then I have, the 5th Mob guys that I'm working with, and try to have a family life somehow. Mm-hmm. And then I'm sometimes going out and doing seminars, sometimes they're jiu-jitsu or MMA, and sometimes they're civilian-based combatives. So I'm actually going to do a combatives one in Texas. It's a rescheduled seminar for combatives, June 20th in Odessa at Midland BJJ.
Midland. That's is that Bruno Bastos? Is that his?
His name is Brad Barnes.
Oh, okay.
The wrong BB.
Oh, okay, I got you. I know that. I think Bruno has a gym out that direction. Brad Barnes, is that what you said?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, Bruno's all over the Texas scene down south.
Yeah. I had another question. Now I can't remember. Mitch, go ahead.
Are you teaching Air Force combative classes at your academy right now?
No. Okay. I do teach combatives classes, but I don't teach Air Force combatives, the Air Force combatives program. I work with the 5th Mob guys at my school on my curriculum, and some of the stuff does cross over. It's like I tell people all the time, if you get people, like different people, and they train the same thing, they will arrive to the same conclusion without ever having met one another. But I think that some of the stuff that I do is more based on an environment where you have a barrier, like a wall or a cage or a car or a tank or some type of barrier behind you, because it's very rare that you're going to fight in the middle of a football field. So I do a lot of barrier based grappling and stuff like that. But I work with those guys at my school, and then I do teach a jiu-jitsu for self-defense, which when I have one of my instructors teach it, it's basically BJJ for self-defense. And when I teach it, it's basically combatives. But it's just like my combative stuff. I think that if you're going to teach and get credit for Air Force combatives program, I think the one thing that was in the AFI was that it has to be on a Air Force
installation,
certified training station or something.
I got you. Yeah, I was just curious because after going through that course and after going through the program and stuff, and trying to implement it at the unit level, even in my squadron and my unit, there's requirements for you have to have so many hours of teaching per year to maintain certification stuff. And I wasn't sure if maybe that was a route you were taking to kind of cross that T and dot that I to maintain those hours of instruction. That's why I was, and I've seen some things on your social media post up about the combatives training and some of the guys who were in uniform. I just wasn't sure if that was something you were offering.
Well, I mean, I would love for that to be a thing. And I am going to be approaching Dave about that probably after he finalizes this curriculum that he's working on. But I was going to kind of give him some space before I even brought that up for a while. So, I mean, that would be my goal, is for my school to be an official source. And then, the men and women, that come in that, if I'm teaching them, they're going to get credit. I sometimes do go on base and work with the fifth mob. But I'm still teaching them, my stuff. I've aided them with some of the, what do they call it? Like personal defense, self-defense courses for, that they offer for free, on base. So I've aided in that kind of stuff. So maybe I can get some teaching creds for that. They didn't really show us how to fill out a form or do any type of thing to get any credit.
The administrative piece of that wasn't really, we've kind of all just been kind of figuring it out as we go. And I think even with Dave, with the program, it's such a different deal because we're really satellite users in comparison. I mean, he's there at the Center of Excellence for the combatives program there at the Academy in Colorado Springs. And so it's a much different world than what we're kind of living in out here as kind of satellite instructors. And so I don't know that was something that they had considered being geolocated the way we are. So
I think they're still working on it. I think that they are, we got to beta test that program, and I think that they're still working on finalizing it and getting it signed off. And I think that once they do this next one, that it's going to be in full swing, and they'll have all the answers to all the questions that we have.
I agree. And I've reached out to Dave a few times, and I've got guys at the base here in Little Rock that are wanting to do the basic instructor course. And of course, we got back whenever it was, we got back from the course, and then so in October we got back from the course, and then we started implementing. We had to wait for the AFI to drop, and we had to wait for those things to come down, and then that stuff starts getting pushed forward, and then coronavirus happens, and now I've got
exactly. I was supposed to attend the SOC PI, the SOC P instructor course at in Fayetteville. During this Corona season.
So for guys who don't know what that is, so SOC PI, SOC P is the Special Operations Combatives Program, and it's what's the guy's name up there that's teaching it?
Greg.
Yeah.
Is it Greg Nelson?
I knew it was Greg. Yeah, but if what's his face was here, he would know. But yeah, so it's a great program. He developed himself. He's out of North Carolina. He runs his own academy up there in North Carolina as well, but he developed that program, and it's a pretty badass program, honestly. And I'm hoping that I get the opportunity at some point to go up there and take it.
Greg Thompson.
There you go.
Greg Nelson. Isn't that the old Minnesota MMA guy that okay, yeah.
Yeah, I got to train with him years ago. He's fantastic, actually.
Yeah, Craig Thompson. Yeah. We would have been doing him a disservice if we didn't think of that.
Yeah, I don't know why it slipped my mind. Probably because I'm living in my backyard. And I'm so far removed from the world that I once was involved in.
What is can you go on a little bit about your podcast? Is combatives a part of what you're talking about in your podcast, and what's going on?
We haven't had a guest yet, but it is something that I'm going to be doing. My podcast is the Miller Martial Arts Podcast. It is on iTunes and YouTube and Spotify and whatever I got somebody who handles like the distribution of where it goes. But anywhere that there's a podcast available, you can get it there.
Mhm.
But we're mostly local. We got like 200 listeners on average per show. We just started. We got like not 9 or 10 episodes, but it's mostly people that are either in my gym or people that I'm affiliated with. But I do all my stuff in person with our guests, and we are going to be talking about combatives. I just haven't had a combatives guest on yet, but that's something that I'm going to be talking about pretty heavily. It's going to be like a staple for our show.
Right on.
Dude, if you could get Dave Durnell down there, that'd be sick.
Yeah, another thing is I can go to people. So like one time, the first episode we did was with my brother Micah while he was at ATT HQ. So if I go to Colorado, which I will again, maybe I can get Dave to come on board and tell us a little bit about what he's doing. If without divulging too much information, and talk about stuff that he feels comfortable talking about, that'd be great. And I got some other friends, Jason Kelly, and some other people that are really involved in the combatives community that I'd love to interview, pick their brains, and just be able to show our listeners how cool my gym is and how cool the people that my gym is associated with are.
Okay.
So, are you just a student or customer of the cause and effect guys out there?
I'm the lead combatives instructor.
Okay, yeah, I wanted to ask about that because I follow those guys, and I see you kind of getting involved with some of that.
Yeah, so we did the inaugural. We had been talking about for a while. We did the inaugural sets or cause and effect tactical solutions course at my academy in January of this year. So I basically kind of took my program, I tweaked it a little bit for what I thought was better for a civilian market versus military or law enforcement. Most people who carry concealed, as you know. They're not carrying open carry at 3 o'clock, although some still choose to carry at 3 o'clock. It's not open carry. So when you're in a concealed, when you're drawn from concealment, it's a lot different than, drawing unconcealed. And when you're drawn from appendix carry, that's a lot different than drawing from a 3 o'clock or from the thigh. So it changes the angles at which you do some things. Principally, it's all still the same, but technically it changes very little. So I just wanted to have all that done. And so I designed that curriculum for them. And I did that course in January. And like I said, I was supposed to do another one with our Texas-based instructor, who is Brad Barnes, and I'm going to his school. We were supposed to do that in May or April. No, March. We were supposed to do that in March. Sorry. March 21st or something. But that got rescheduled. And so now we're going to do that June 20th. So that'll be like the inaugural one that we do in Texas. And Brad Barnes is a very competent instructor. The only reason we've been waiting to do that first Texas one was so me and him could get in the same room together. He's already a TCOL or Texas whatever of law enforcement is what that stands for. He's a law enforcement officer in Texas, and very competent defensive tactics instructor, very competent MMA trainer. He's cornered guys like Muhammad Lawal or King Mo. You may know him as Ryan Quinn's, some studs. He's black belt jiu-jitsu. Like he doesn't need me to tell him what's what. It's more just being about to get us both in the same room, showing that we're a team, showing that we're connected, that we do talk to one another, as far as like the curriculum is concerned, and getting him on the same page or being able to answer one of those questions. That's why I'm going out there to Texas to teach the inaugural one. From there, he'll be doing them in Texas. He'll be leading the way for the Texas program, and I'll be doing the stuff everywhere else pretty much. And I would like to say this year, but with what Corona's done to us, it might have set us back maybe till early next year, like a complete program. Oh shit, I got a wasp on me. we might damn, wasp on me fucking. Oh yeah, he just got fucked up. I got him before he stung me. Perfect. He flew on my fucking neck.
I thought there was a dog or something.
You guys are less impressed than I am with what just happened. This wasp just flew on my neck and was like then got to my arm. I swatted him off. He hit the ground. I stepped on him, like ultimate fatality.
That's awesome.
But we are going to be doing like a complete, fully integrated course where you'll be learning probably similar to what, I don't know exactly what, the guys do at ShivWorks. Craig Douglas is a famous combatives instructor, or the SOCP, or what does Tim Kennedy do? What's it called? Sheepdog.
Yeah, Sheepdog.
I don't know exactly what they do. It's probably going to be similar, but it's going to be a fully integrated where you come in, you learn, some pistol skills, then you'll be doing some combatives with a pistol, then you're learning some rifle, then combatives with a rifle with some CQB where you're doing stuff for personal defense, for civilian is what I'm talking about. And in it, you're doing simunition or airsoft for some specific platforms, and knife training. It's going to be like the complete package where you come in for like a 3-day course, and it's going to be a crash course in personal self-defense, because that's really what we're talking about when you talk about combatives for the civilian market. What are we talking about? We're talking about self-defense for dudes. That's what we're really talking about.
No, you're absolutely right, and that was when I started incorporating some of the combative stuff into my classes at Westside. Nothing crazy, I wasn't turning my AM classes and my 6 p.m. beginner classes on Fridays into a combatives course. But even your diehard sport jiu-jitsu fans, every now and then they enjoy learning those combative pieces. And I was kind of reinvigorated with the combative side things myself after I got back from that class. And I think that there's so much that people don't take into account, as far as their overconfidence and their abilities, I guess you would call it. A lot of people carry, I appendix carry myself, and a lot of people conceal carry. But it's easy to conceal carry and walk around with this idea of knowing that you have this pistol on your hip. But 99.99999% of people have never had to pull it out ever, not one time. Let alone have they ever had to pull it out when someone's also trying to take it from them or put them against a barrier, push them over over a car hood or whatever the case may be. And so I think it's extremely important to have programs out there like what you're talking about, where people can go in, the average citizen, not the military guy. Like we get paid a lot of money to go do a lot of classes, some of which we don't want to do, some we do want to do. I got paid to go up to Colorado Springs for 3 weeks and train with a bunch of cool black belts. That's not everybody else's everyday life.
And play. You got paid to play.
Yeah, I got to play for 3 weeks, and I got paid per diem to do it. And so it was ridiculous. That's not everybody else's everyday life, and so you're right. The average person that's coming in that's interested in this combative side of the world is going to be a civilian person, and they're going to be using it. It's like when we went through survival training. We always talk about survival training in the military as in SEER training. It's the best training you hope you never have to use, right? That's the idea. And so with getting involved in these tactical courses and stuff like that, my only fear is that the market is going to start to get saturated, unfortunately.
Well, I think that the amount of qualified people who are capable of teaching this stuff is not as high of a number as you would think. And I think that although it might become saturated, I think that the people who are what I'm going to call the real ones, I think that the people who are showing the legitimate stuff and who are good teachers will be far and few between. I think being able to do it, everybody thinks that whoever can do it is also a good teacher. And from jiu-jitsu that is not the case. But the same thing is true when it comes to firearms training, to combatives training, to knife fighting training. There are people that are motherfucking ninjas, but they can't convey the message in such a way that the student is able to, 1, pick it up, and 2, retain.
No, you're absolutely right. I had a personal experience with that. One of my coaches in jiu-jitsu was a world champion, but couldn't teach to save his life. I mean, literally, if you put a gun to his head and said, "Teach me a butterfly sweep," you would end up shooting him in the head. Like, it just wasn't going to happen, and that's the case with a lot of situations, I think. But you're right. Conveying the information is what's important, not necessarily having the information in your brain is one thing. Letting other people put it in their brain is another. But well, Cole, we're at an hour, just over an hour, so we're not going to take up a whole lot more of your time. One thing that I wanted to ask before we go was, you talked about getting back in the fight game. You talked about whenever you and I talked in October, you told me straight up, like, yeah, I want to fight again. What's the likelihood of us seeing you back in the cage doing that again?
I think it's pretty likely. At this point in my life, I want to fight because I want to. There was a time where I was fighting because I had to, or even worse, I felt like I had to. Like that's one of the worst situations to be in, is you're doing something because you feel that you have to. I think that sometimes, like, you got to be able to pull yourself, withdraw, detach, whatever word you want to use, from whatever, and kind of look at things from a broader view. And I think that the last couple years, I was too close to the situation and I couldn't see things for what they were. And being able to take a break like I've taken from fighting, and being able to set myself up to where I'm far from a rich man, but being able to live just an even comfortable life. Because when you're a fighter, your life is for your family, for yourself, for anybody, it's far from comfortable. So being able to just like get a little bit of stability for my personal life has let me want to fight. Like that's how it's inside of me. Like I wake up every day and I want to take my knee and drive it through somebody's skull.
Oh, sames, brother.
I think about it all the time, and not in the kind of way of like, remember when I did it. It's not like that kind of feeling. It's like, I can't wait to do it again. So I'm driven to do it. I still train with the boys. You know what I'm saying? Like the guys that are hard. I'm still training with them. When I go to Coconut Creek, I do the pro training. It's not like I'm just training gi with the hobbyists now. I'm still getting it. I still surround myself with guys who either used to be pros or guys that are trying to get after it. And I'm doing okay for myself. So the only thing I'm gonna have to do is let's get this thing booked, and then I got to make sure that I'm not taken advantage of. Like, there was some stuff that happened in a situation, like I said, in October, where I just didn't feel like it was the right time. I didn't feel like I was being taken very seriously, but I think that I'm in a position now where I'm really ready to get it on. So I just got to find a promoter that'll not even pay me what I feel that I'm worth. Because I want to try to do something for our guys at the EOD Warrior Foundation. It's a really good cause. I want to donate my services to where, it's free, and I'm willing to do that. I can't be taken advantage of as far as respect is concerned. So I want to fight. I want to do it for charity. So I got to be able to find a promoter or something like that can kind of get me in the game and knock some dust off. And then I'd like to make, I guess you could call it a third act or a final run at, let's just see what I'm capable of.
Right on. Is there any social media or anything that you want to shout out? Anything like that? Any projects or the EOD Foundation? Anything?
Yeah, let's shout out the Rough and Tumble Podcast. Y'all follow them on all the platforms that y'all can.
Appreciate it, man. We really appreciate having you on, and I'm looking forward. I'm actually going to go back and watch your fight, your masterpiece, because I really want to watch that and pick up some new tips from there.
Cool.
And Cole, this is Mitch. I really appreciate you really doing this, man. A lot of people don't realize how much you support the military community. I know you're in a military town. I know a lot of your students are military. But for the people out there who don't realize how much you really support the military, we really appreciate it. I know you're a huge advocate for us. I see it in your social media. I saw it whenever we hung out for 3 weeks up to the combatives course. You really do. You give us a lot of credit that maybe we deserve, maybe we don't deserve. It is what it is. But from our community, I really appreciate all the support that you've always shown us over the years. So
Yeah, man. I appreciate you guys and your service. Thank you.
For sure, brother.
All right. We'll see you guys next week.
Woo-woo.